Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 102b. We were talking about, in the end of the previous Amud, we were talking about a temporary blemish for a priest or a permanent blemish in terms of what's more stringent as far as eating truma or eating, the sacrifices. And so we ended off with that Rav Sheshet said reverse the wording as follows. One might have thought that I have derived only the halacha with regard to a priest with a temporary blemish. From where is it derived that one with a permanent blemish also receives a share? And Rav Ashi said, actually, do not reverse the wording, and it's not difficult. It was necessary to teach that even a priest with a temporary blemish receives a share. Because it might enter your mind to say, and now we're on 102b, with the words ki tameh, ma tameh kamed lo tahor lo achil, af hainami kamed lo mataknan, mitkan lo achil, kamashma. That the halacha of this priest is like that of a ritually impure priest. Just as an impure priest may not partake as long as he is not pure, so too this priest with a temporary blemish may not partake as long as he does not become fit. The verse therefore teaches us that he may receive a share even before his blemish heals. So you might have thought that a temporary is even more stringent than a permanent. Okay, which is counter the opposite. You would think a permanent blemish is more stringent, but he brought a case to say that even temporary might be more stringent. Okay. The Mishnah teaches the principle is any priest who is unfit for the service that day does not receive a share of the sacrificial meat. The Gemara objects, but doesn't he? Isn't there a blemished priest who is not fit for the service and who nevertheless receives a share of the meat, as the Mishnah itself teaches? And furthermore, this principle indicates that only priests unfit for the service do not receive a share, but any priest who is fit for the service does receive a share. But isn't there an impure priest who, with regard to offerings of the community, is fit for the service, and who nevertheless does not receive a share? The Gemara answers, the Mishnah is saying that any priest who is not fit for partaking of sacrificial meat does not receive a share. Blemished priests may partake of sacrificial meat, and impure priests may not. The Gemara objects. This indicates that any priest who is fit to partake may receive a share, but isn't there a minor who is fit for partaking and who does not receive a share? The Gemara answers this inverse principle that any priest who is fit to partake may receive a share is not taught. The Mishnah means to teach only that any priest who is unfit does not receive a share. Hashta de'asis lahachi lo'ilam kideko amrit mikoro imishum tame lo ketani imishum balbum rachman rabiyam. The Gemara notes, now that you have arrived at this conclusion, that the Mishnah's statement only teaches what it says explicitly, one can say that the Mishnah actually means what the Gemara said at the outset, that no priest unfit for the service receives a share. If one raises an objection with regard to an impure priest who is fit for the service of communal offerings but does not receive a share, answer that the Mishnah does not teach that every fit priest, even an impure one, receives a share. Only the inverse. And if you raise an objection with regard to a blemished priest who is unfit for the service, but nevertheless receives a share. Answer, that the merciful one included him as an exception by the phrase every male as arrived above 102a. Afilu tame b'shas rikas damim. Where were we? Afilu tame, right? Right. Afilu tame b'shas rikas damim v'tov b'shas hekta chalavim. Ein achoylek v'tov b'shas rikas damim. The Mishnah teaches, even if the priest was ritually impure only at the time of the sprinkling of the blood of the offering, and he was pure at the time of the burning of the fats, he still does not receive a share of the meat. The Gemara notes, consequently, one can infer that the priest who was pure at the time of the sprinkling of the blood, even one who was impure at the time of the burning of the fats, does receive a share. Masnisan lelo kama shaul, litanya b'shul omer, le'oila mino echelat shehito, mishas rika ad shas hektor chalovim. Gemar kro, ha'makriv estam eshlomim esachelet, te'afilu hektor chalovim nami boi. The Gemara comments, the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Abba Shaul. As it is taught in the Braita, Abba Shaul says a priest never partakes, meaning receives a share of sacrificial meat, unless he is pure from the time of sprinkling until the time of the burning of the fats. As the verse states, he among the sons of Aaron who sacrifices the blood of the peace offerings and the fat shall have the right thigh for a portion. Leviticus 7:33. The verse requires that the priest be pure even at the time of the burning of the fats. Boiravashi nitma bentaimahu vishaz rigo shasaktor beinon v'yiga odilma ad shehei toer vishaz riga v'yachas hekter chalavim teiku. Okay. This would be the 222nd teiku, I believe, in Shas, to be recorded, God willing, after this daf. I found that as I'm going, and I just record them, then when I get there, finally, in the teikus, they'll already be made. So I won't have to do them every Sunday, like I have been doing. I've been doing like 8 teikus each Sunday. 7 or 8 teikus each Sunday, and then now if I do it one by one, inch by inch is a cinch, mile by mile, it's yard by yard is hard, inch by inch is a cinch. Boiravashi nitma bentaimahu v'shas rigo shasaktor beinon v'goyel ad shehei toer mishas riga v'shas hektor chalavim teiku. Ravashi raises a dilemma. According to the opinion of Abba Shaul, in a case where the priest became impure between the sprinkling of the blood and the burning of the fats, but became pure again before the latter, what's the halacha? Oh, interesting. If in a case where a priest became impure between the sprinkling of the blood and the burning of the fats, and then became pure before the burning of the fats, what's the halacha? Do we require that he be pure for both at the time of the sprinkling and the time of the burning of the fats? And there is purity at these times? Or perhaps Abba Shaul meant that the priest may not receive a share in the meat unless he is pure from the time of the sprinkling until the time of the burning of the fats, without interruption. The Gemara concludes, the dilemma shall stand unresolved. I think this would be the 222nd, if I'm not mistaken, teiku in the Shas. Either 221 or 222. I'm pretty sure it's 222. But I don't want to set that as a stone in case I'm off. Amarave Hi Dina Midrevelosa Rav Shimon Gimiona Yamar Vezaki said Danta Batavulio Yamar Tenli Mimin Chaloichel. The Mishnah teaches that an impure priest will immerse that day such that he will not be pure until sunset, and likewise the cute mourner and one who has not yet brought an atonement offering do not receive a share of sacrificial meat in order to partake of it in the evening. Rava says, I learned this halacha from Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, who said, in the bathroom, he said in the bathroom you can contend by way of a story. I wonder what that means. He said in the bathroom you could contend by way of a story. A priest who immersed that day came and said to a pure priest of the same patrilineal priestly family serving the temple that day, who was apportioning the sacrificial food, give me a share of a meal offering, and I will partake of it in the evening. Amar lo, ma'im bimkom shipa kochacha, bichatatecha, dichitich mechatat Yisrael, makom sheora kochacha, b'minchatecha, enodin she'adachacha b'minchat Yisrael. The pure priest said a kal v'chomer inference to him. Just as with regard to a matter where your right is superior, meaning in the case of your own sin offering, to which you have a right even when your family is not serving in the temple, I can nevertheless deny you a share of a sin offering of an Israelite because you immersed today. Is it not logical that with regard to a matter where your right is inferior, meaning in the case of your own meal offering, as the meal offering of a priest is not eaten at all, that I can deny you a share of the meal offering of an Israelite? Uma im dichitani mechatat Yisrael, keshem shipa kochi kach yape kochacha, tidicheni minchat Yisrael, shekeshem shora kochi kach ora kochacha. The priest who immersed that day responded, but even if you can deny me a share of the sin offering of an Israelite on the day I immersed, perhaps this is since, just as my right is superior in the case of my own sin offering, so too your right is superior in the case of your own sin offering. If so, is it necessary that you can refuse me a share of the meal offering of an Israelite, where just as my right is inferior, so your right is inferior, as neither of us may eat from our own meal offerings? Harayu omer lakon v'achriv ota lo tiyeh bo hakrev v'achel. The pure priest responded, the verse states with regard to the sin offering, the priest who effects atonement shall eat it. Leviticus 6:19. If you wish to receive a share of a sin offering, come effect atonement and partake of one. Since you cannot perform the service of a sin offering, having immersed only today, you cannot receive a share in its meat either. Okay. Amar lo, the priest who immersed that day made another demand and said to him, give me a share of the breast and thigh, the portions that the priests receive of peace offerings, and I will partake of it in the evening when I am pure. Amar lo, uma bimkom shipa kochacha b'chatatecha, dichitich mechatat Yisrael b'chasei v'shok, makom shehora kochacha b'shlamim she'enach b'hen elach chasei v'shok hinodin she'adachacha. The pure priest said to him, just as with regard to a matter where your right is superior, meaning in the case of your own sin offering, to which you have a right to its meat in its entirety, I can deny you a share of the sin offering of an Israelite, as I explained. So too, is it not logical that with regard to a matter where your right is inferior, meaning in the case of a peace offering, of which you have only the right to a share of the breast and thigh, I can deny you a share? Ma im dichitani michatat sheken ora kochi etzel neshai v'vadai tidcheni v'chazei v'shok sheken yafe kochi etzel neshai v'vadai. The priest who immersed that day responded, but if you can deny me a share of the sin offering, where my right is inferior with regard to my wives and my slaves, as a sin offering can be consumed only by male priests, is it necessarily so that you can deny me a share of the breast and thigh of the peace offering, where my right is superior with regard to my wives and slaves, who may partake of them? Harehu Omer, la kohen azorek et hadam ashlamim lo yeh. The pure priest responded, the verse states with regard to the peace offering, it shall be the priest's. I wonder who's recording this whole interaction. Did this actually happen, or is this just kind of like an example? I don't know. The pure priest responded, the verse states with regard to the peace offering, it shall be the priest that sprinkles the blood of the peace offerings against the altar. Leviticus 7:14, if you wish to partake of the peace offering, come sprinkle its blood and partake of it. Since you cannot perform this service, having immersed only today, you cannot receive a share of its meat either. The story concludes, poor guy, the priest who immersed that day left in disappointment with his kal v'chomer inferences upon his head, as they did not help him. And along with him walked an acute mourner on his right, and a priest who had not yet brought an atonement offering on his left. They too were denied shares because they were unfit for the temple service. Rabbi Achai refutes this. Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, could have added to the contentions described in the story. Let the priest who immersed that day say to the pure priest, give me a share of the firstborn offering, and I will partake of it in the evening. Yishum da'amar le ma bimkom shehora kochi b'chadas etzel neshai v'vadai dichidir mechadas Yisrael makom pekochi v'chol tikuli dilihi eno din she'adechacha b'mene. Perhaps it is because the pure priest could say to him, just as with regard to sin offering, where my right is inferior with regard to my wives and slaves, since it may be eaten only by male priests, I can nevertheless deny you a share of the sin offering of an Israelite, as I explained. So too is it not logical that with regard to a firstborn, where my right is superior because all of its meat is mine, as firstborn offerings are given to a specific priest, I can deny you a share of it. But the priest who immersed that day could respond, but if you can deny me a share of a sin offering, where just as your right is inferior, so is my right inferior, is it necessary that you can deny me a share of a firstborn offering, where just as your right is superior, so is my right superior? The pure priest could respond. The verse states with regard to the firstborn offering, you shall sprinkle their blood on the altar, and shall make their fat smoke for an offering made by fire, for a pleasing aroma to the Lord, and the flesh of them shall be yours. As the breast and as the thigh, it shall be yours. Numbers 18:17-18. If you wish to receive a share in the meat of a firstborn, come, sprinkle its blood and partake of it. Why did Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, not include this exchange as another stage in this story? Was this all made up? It's just an example. V'idach parich mi ketiv u'b'saram l'kohen hazorek u'b'saram yelech u'b'saram yelach ketiv afilu l'kohen acher. The Gemara responds, but the other priest, the one who immersed that day, could refute this proof. It is written, and the flesh of them shall be for the priest who sprinkles, as it is written with regard to a meal offering, a sin offering, and a peace offering. Rather, it is written, and the flesh of them shall be yours, indicating that it can be given even to a priest other than the one who sacrificed it. This is why Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, did not include this exchange in his story. The Gemara returns to Rabbi's statement that Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, taught this halacha in the bathroom. How can we do this? How did Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, do this? But doesn't Rabbi Bar Chadash say, Rabbi Yochanan says it is permitted to contemplate matters of Torah in all places except the bathhouse and the bathroom? Your answer is a case where the matter was involuntary is different. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, was so preoccupied with the issue that he taught it even when he was in the bathroom. Interesting. Wow.